Hello and welcome to this week's Crow and Dunleavy recap on all matters employment law related and COVID related. I'm Randall Snapp, co-chair of the Labor and Employment section at Crow and Dunleavy, and I'm here to give you this week's update. I'm happy to do so. Now, there were no major legislative or regulatory changes in the past week that we need to talk about, but there certainly have been a lot of developments with regard to employment law and COVID-19. As we all know, Governor Stitt lifted the stay-at-home requirements, and employers are now returning employees back to work or developing plans to do so. So as we do that, we want to give you a few reminders and updates of what could be happening as employees start coming back to work. And first of all, I think it's important that employers that are returning employees to work develop and disseminate a plan for the return to work with the safety of the employees in mind. Now, in developing these plans, there are a lot of resources that you can use to try to decide what should be and should not be in the plan. For example, the CDC and OSHA have a lot of guidance on this issue. So if you need more details, more information, and help in developing your plans, you can look to those resources. In addition, Mary Snyder and our firm did a client advisory or client alert a couple weeks ago on this issue. So you can look on our website, pull that information, and use that in developing your plans. Now, I do think that one important item that we need to remind employees of as we are returning them to work is that different employees have different sensitivities. Different employees have different thoughts on whether they should actually be returning to work and what's a safe environment, and different employees have different health conditions. So therefore, we need to understand that some employees may have thoughts or requirements that are greater than others in terms of what needs to be done to protect them in the workplace. And I think we need to remind our employees that a lot of the measures that are being taken in these return to work plans are not there necessarily to protect them, although we certainly want to protect all employees. But a lot of the measures are being utilized to protect other employees from you infecting them. So for example, face masks. A lot of employees may not want to wear a face mask. But the idea is that if they wear the face mask, they're protecting other employees. And other employees may prefer that if they're going to enter their office or their work area, that everyone have a face mask. So we need to remind employees to be respectful and be sensitive to other employees in the workplace as we're returning people to work. So when we do these policies, I think there are certain aspects that we need to consider and then put in our plans together. First of all, you may want to phase in your workforce so that not everybody's coming back at the same time. Return those to work that absolutely need to be returned to work, and then phase the other employees back in so that you can see how the plan is working, and so that you can adjust your measures and your safety measures along the way. And to this end, we may want to still encourage and allow employees to telework if feasible. For example, if some of them have strong sensibilities about not returning to work, do not want to return to work, you might want to allow them to telework if possible. When you do get into the workplace, certainly you want to implement social distancing measures. You may need to modify your workspace and your physical spaces to allow for social distancing. For example, in the break room or the kitchen, you may want to move tables more than 6 feet apart so that you can implement the social distancing. You might want to consider a staggered work schedule, so not all the employees are coming in at the same time. Some are coming in earlier, some are staying later, so that you don't have a full workforce in the workplace at the same time. You might want to stagger lunches so that people are not going to lunch, getting on the elevators, or going to the lunchroom at the same time. Certainly you want to decrease social contact. There's no reason to have an actual staff meeting with everybody in the conference room if you can do that virtually or do it by email or some other measure. So you might want to decrease the opportunities for everybody to be in the same break room, for example. Those are all things that would decrease the possibility of there being social contact. You might need to limit work-related meetings, continue to use Zoom, continue to use email if possible. You certainly still want to limit non-essential travel, at least for the near future, until we get a better handle on the COVID and everything that develops out. You might want to consider health checks. And last week's update by Adam Childers covered testing that you can do with employees as they return to work. So if you need some help with that, go back and take a look at Adam's well done recap from last week. And obviously, if employees are sick, they should stay at home. You need to emphasize to employees that they need to report to supervisors if someone that they're in contact with has been sick, if they've traveled out of state, or if they've been in contact with people who traveled out of state. This is all information that is important to be conveyed to the supervisors. Send employees home if they have symptoms that arise. There should be continue to watch that. If the testing detects it, or if an employee is reporting symptoms, they need to be sent home. Certainly, you should encourage personal protective measures such as face masks, hand washing, have these supplies available to the employees, such as the face masks on site, and perhaps have the protective wipes around the workplace. And then implement extra cleaning, especially in high use areas, doorknobs that need to be used, conference rooms once they're used, bathroom doors, sinks, things like that. Certainly implement extra cleaning kitchen areas, implement procedures where if you have a coffee bar that only one person is in that area of the coffee bar at the same time. The whole concept being is you're trying to provide as safe a workforce as you possibly can for your employees. Now, finally, with employees returning to work, we're going to likely see an increase in leave requests, especially leave requests for the emergency FMLA. And this is going to be compounded by the fact that schools are now ending their seasons. They're going into summer vacation. So a lot of folks that may have had a leave because their child's school was closed no longer really have that consideration and that qualification for emergency family medical leave. So what they may still want the leave, and keep in mind that under the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, they would really only be entitled to that leave if their child care is closed. In other words, if they had other arrangements that they typically make during the summer for their kids once they get out of school, and those arrangements are still available, they technically would not be entitled to emergency family medical leave. So those considerations we're going to have to work through as this develops, because we anticipate with employees coming back to work or being asked to come back to work and schools closing at the same time, that we're going to have an increase in requests for emergency family medical leave. So go back, take a look at the act, make sure you have the leave forms available, make sure that you're prepared to handle those situations. Now that's it for this week, but keep in mind that things will and often change on a short notice. So we need to continue to monitor the situation. We'll be back next week with any new developments. Thank you.